Okay, so go ahead, ask.
Like Sudhirji was asking, like we should discuss more about Vaisheshika, like that. Like,
Yes, Vaisheshika is not very popular nowadays. You'll not find the main sampradayas are not discussing much about Vaisheshika. Even Nyaya is only discussed in some, like some specific schools. Like, for example, there is this Jagannath University in Jagannath Puri. I know they have a faculty of Nyaya. They have a faculty of Sankhya. I don't think they have a Vaisheshika school. But the Vaisheshika is particularly famous for the examination of the material objects, the nature of matter. While Sankhya is a study of categories of existence, the Sankhya is listing a number of categories of existence, if you remember. We can get them, we can put them on a slide in the presentation. But they're just categories. Now, the Vaisheshika is famous, Canada, Rishi, is famous for the study of matter, of existence, of the universe at the atomic level. Canada is famous for talking about the atom. So this is something that is actually interesting, but it is not so much my field of research. So we know what Vaisheshika is, we know what Nyaya is, we know what Sankhya is, but we don't have to follow them to attain our goal. You understand? We were mentioning yoga and bhakti, which bhakti is also yoga, because yoga is very it's a very broad concept. And it's very useful. Actually, people are very interested even today. The problem is that people who teach the Vaisheshika Darshana, I don't think there are many people around who can do that.
Another thing, like these 6 darshanas are also, can we say, like each darshana has some specific application as per the different yugas?
Not particularly. Yoga is yoga.
Yeah.
Now the most famous ones are the Karma Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa.
Yes, but as we can see nowadays, mostly we are going for yoga and Uttara Mimamsa and little bit Karma Mimamsa.
Yes, no, but if you go to Jagannath Puri, you'll find a lot of Karma Mimamsa.
Yeah.
Many people. These are the 3 main ones.
Yeah.
That's why I put them. The Uttara Mimamsa is the top, the most famous, because all the especially in colonial times with the Adi Shankara school, the Vedanta Sutra became a very major object of study.
Yes, yes.
And it was introduced to Western thinkers and philosophers, and they have been thinking a lot about the Vedanta, and the philosophy behind the Vedanta, which is mostly Upanishad, and but the okay. The idea is that, for example, if you study a little bit of the history in colonial times, you remember also the Neo-Vedanta. You heard about Neo-Vedanta?
Neo-Vedanta? No, I didn't.
You heard about Neo-Vedanta? No.
No.
Okay, so do one thing. If you can, have a look at my book, Why I Became a Hindu. Okay, there is a big part about the beginning of the Hindu resurgence. And it started with the so-called Neo-Vedanta. You heard about Arya Samaj?
Yes.
You heard about Brahma Samaj?
Yes.
That's a so-called Neo-Vedanta.
Vedanta.
So all these people within the period of the freedom, the fight for independence, they were thinking we need a new Vedanta, a new Vedanta perspective. So that is why it was called Neo-Vedanta. Now, Vivekananda, Shivananda, all these people, including the Arya Samaj, Brahma Samaj, the Ramakrishna Math, they all fall under the category of Neo-Vedanta. Because they say, okay, we want to stick to Vedanta, but we need a new interpretation that is according to the global culture, especially because at that time the global culture was the Abrahamic culture. So their idea of Neo-Vedanta was to make Hinduism more palatable to Christians, to the British regime. So that's why everybody was talking about Vedanta. And we have on one side the Neo-Vedanta of the people that I just mentioned now, Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, Vivekananda, Aurobindo, and Ramakrishna, and Ramana Maharshi. All these people are practically Neo-Vedantists. And then we have the old Vedantists, which is a Sankaracharya line. Because they were studying the Vedanta according to the old system. They didn't include the Christianity. They didn't try to interpret Vedanta in the light of Christianity.
Yes.
Okay, which is better. Then we have the Vaishnava Vedanta, which I think you wanted to go there.
No, I just wanted to say each philosophy has its own acharya, we can say, like Jaimini, Kanada, or Patanjali, or Kapila Muni.
Yes.
Each
Yeah.
not exactly acharya, the pioneer of that.
Yeah, we can say acharyas. We can say acharyas because they are considered the main authority.
Yeah.
On that particular perspective.
And each philosophy has its own literatures also, like bhashyas also have on each.
Exactly. So, especially about the Vedanta in the Middle Ages, after Adi Shankar wrote his Shariraka Bhashya, the Vaishnava acharyas that are presented by, for example, the Gaudiya tradition, that is the most famous, at global level at present, like the Gaudiya Math and ISKCON, They present the Vaishnava Vedanta with Madhva, who wrote the Vedanta Bhashya, and Ramanuja, who also wrote the Vedanta Bhashya. And then we have our old acquaintance Baladev Vidyabhushan, who wrote the Vedanta Bhashya. So
one thing is like each philosophy have its own way of following the like rules,
interpretation.
But all the philosophies are meant for reaching at a same goal.
Exactly. That is why we need to reconcile all the different. Now, personally, I find that the particular approach described as established and propounded by Krishna Chaitanya is very believable, it's very satisfying, more than the other Vaishnava Vedanta Bhashyas.
Yes.
Because the concept of Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva is
more inclusive also.
Yeah, it's more inclusive.
Yeah.
Madhva definitely with these Dvaita ideas, could appeal to some people. Ramanuja also had a slightly different approach. But in the end of the story, we have to reconcile all the approaches. Otherwise, if we don't get a comprehensive vision, we are going to miss some piece.
Yes.
If we miss a piece of the puzzle, it's not clear what we get.
Yes. And another thing, just I want to get clarification about, like what exactly the meaning of Vedanta Sutra and Brahma Sutra?
It's the same. Actually, Vedanta Sutra and Brahma Sutra are two names, just like Vishnu and Narayana. Because the Vedanta means the end of the Vedas, the purpose, the goal, the final conclusion, whatever. Vedanta. Okay. Brahma Sutra, Brahman refers to Brahman. Not to Brahma, the creator, but to Brahman, to the supreme Brahman. So it means that is, discussing about the Brahman. The Vedanta Sutras are presenting the, the topic of Brahman.
But like I have read somewhere, perhaps I don't know where I have read, but like Vedavyas has written Brahma Sutra only, and later like Adi Shankar and all the like acharyas who are giving bhashyas.
No, I don't think so. I think they're just two names for the same text.
Okay.
Because Adi Shankara didn't write the Vedanta Sutra. Adi Shankara wrote the Vedanta Bhashya.
Bhashya on Vedanta Sutra.
Exactly. In fact, the name is a Shariraka Bhashya. It's not even mentioning Vedanta.
Yes.
But it's a commentary to the Vedanta Sutra.
The
Vedanta Sutra, Vyasa wrote.
Yeah, that is the thing I wanted to.
This is according to what I understand.
Yes.
This is the act. In fact, originally, Brahma, Vyasa wrote it down, but it existed before, because Krishna said Vedanta Krit.
Yes,
Aham.
I have read also like these Devada Muni and all those
Yeah,
Munis before Vyasdev. It was there, but only compilation has been done by Vedavyas.
exactly,
And
exactly.
perhaps he has not given any bhasya. He has not given any
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
He wrote the text itself.
Yes, the text of
Other people wrote the bhashyas. Adi
bhasya.
Shankar wrote the bhashya,
Yes.
Madhva wrote the bhashya, whatever, Baladev Vidyabhushan wrote the bhashya. I don't know how much each of the bhashya is valuable,
Yes. Yes.
but that's not the Vedanta Sutra. That's a bhashya to the Vedanta Sutra.
Bhasya. Yes. Yes.
It's different.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it has
Are
to,
you planning to write
yeah.
any, like, similar to Bhagavad Gita commentary? Are you planning to write on Vedanta Sutra also? Because I try reading few, but the language is difficult,
I
and
know,
in
I know, I
modern
know.
times it is
Actually,
difficult.
several people asked me to do that. But you know, time is limited, energy is limited.
Yes.
And I think that Vedanta Sutra is not easy for people to understand. That's why I went first with Bhagavad Gita.
Mm.
Because Bhagavad Gita is so simple, and so important. Now, Vedanta Sutra, if you read, Adi Shankar himself said, just the Bhagavad Gita is sufficient.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Then, other books that I have been thinking. Now, I wrote this, Why I Became a Hindu. I think it's an important text because it's also bringing, some information about the different great personalities in history. So we can a little bit, understand a little bit better about the various acharyas, sampradayas, and who says what, who does what. To try to, clarify a little bit the foundations of Hinduism. Because it's very confused. Lots of people are very confused. If I live long enough, I'm considering the Vedanta Sutra. Not yet.
But the authentic Vedanta Sutra perhaps available now is only Adi Shankar Bhasya and Sri Bhasya perhaps.
Well, yeah.
but still, like their disciples are giving commentary as per the
Yes,
current.
exactly. But who cares about them?
Yeah, who cares about them? Yeah.
My point is we should try to cater to the needs of people. Because otherwise we are, we fall into the trap of identification and attachment.
Yes, yes, yes.
When we engage in seva, we should, do it with the spirit of service.
Yes.
And what is the service? What is the mission of the avatar? What is the mission of Bhagavan? To help people.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? The mission of Bhagavan is not to, get some academic degrees.
Yes.
If I wanted to get an academic degree, maybe, honoris causa doctorate in Sanskrit, I could do some work on Vedanta Sutra, but I'm not interested.
Yeah.
You understand? So if there is a number of people who really want to understand the Vedanta Sutra, but then first they have to study Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. If someone has not studied Bhagavad Gita yet, I'm not going to help them to understand Vedanta Sutra. Because what they will understand? Just the example I was doing before, you go to school, you go to 8 standards class, and you have 8 books on mathematics. If someone is coming to you and asking, it has not even gone through the first standard, comes to you with the book from the 8th standard class and say, okay, please explain this to me. Maybe not. You know, because it's really more difficult. Already the Upanishads are more difficult than Gita.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So let's start with Gita. Let's clarify the basics, the basic information, so that we don't have misconceptions.
Yes, yes.
Which is the most important thing. We need, actually, I think that we need to, spot the misconceptions first.
Yes, yes.
This is the system. This is a neti-neti. We have to clean the grounds first. When we clean the ground, and then we can build.
And another thing, like,
Please.
I wanted to discuss, like, where is the stance of Bhagavata Purana? Because as per the concept of ISKCON, Bhagavata Purana is the commentary on Vedanta Sutra.
Yeah, okay. It's a commentary in the sense that it explains that the purpose of the Vedanta Sutra is to become a devotee of God, of Bhagavan. That's why it's called Bhagavatam, because it talks about God. So in that sense, it's a elaboration on the Vedanta Sutra, in the sense that it gives easier explanations about the Vedanta Sutra. Now, I have produced a summary study of the Bhagavatam Purana. It has all the information, most of the verses, but I wanted to, I think this would be more useful to people. I wanted to make a series of smaller booklets called The Jewels of the Bhagavatam, because in this book I already published about the Bhagavata Purana, I did not include the prayers and the philosophical elaborations. I only included the philosophical elaborations that are simpler. Like, for example, the teachings of Kapila. Okay, teachings of Kapila, speaking about how the soul incarnates, it's not a very complicated thing. But if you wanted to actually go for some of the stutis, some of the deeper philosophical elaborations in the Bhagavata Purana, we need to go word for word, like I did for the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, definitely.
That is also some more work. So now at present, I'm trying to do some work on YouTube, so that we can widen up the basis and reach more people with the basics, with the fundamentals, like I'm doing on Quora. Then we'll see now what is the plan of Jagannath. Then I will try to write more books. Okay, do we want to discuss the questions that you were asking me earlier? I'm going to read. Okay, then we have, here it is. No, this one. Sudeep. Okay. Now, when the society, okay, I mentioned, when the society becomes degraded, and the good people who have knowledge become too attached to sattva and they do not want troubles, so they do not speak up, the need for divine intervention is most urgent. Now the question is, we hear about the qualities of devotees throughout Gita and especially 12th chapter, where the Lord says that devotees should be tolerant and should have many other qualities like udasin, samashatru cha, mitra cha, yasman not dvijate, loko lokan not dvijate, chaya, etc. How to integrate these two seemingly opposite ideas? How one is supposed to behave on the path of devotion? Should he speak up or tolerate? Okay. Now, the answer is that being a devotee needs to be tolerant, but in regard to the acceptance of what he says, in regard to how people treat the devotee himself. It means that because the devotee is attached, like Krishna is saying in Gita, that we should perform our duty to the best of our abilities without being confused by honor or dishonor, joys or sorrows, victory or defeat, gain or loss, because, this is being tolerant. We tolerate because we are not attached. You say, okay, people are stupid, they throw stuff at you, insults or whatever. They try to create problems to you because you are saying something they don't like. So you tolerate and you keep doing your work. It doesn't mean that you have to tolerate adharma. You have to tolerate people. So when someone is engaging in adharma, you have to tell them. Now, according to your particular swadharma, whether you are a brahmana, a kshatriya, a vaishya, a shudra, or a yogi, or a bhakta, you can perform your particular dharma, your particular duty. And you have to be tolerant, because a brahmana needs to be tolerant. A kshatriya needs to be tolerant in a different way. Yeah. And a yogi and a bhakta also need to be tolerant in a different way. But still, they have to speak up and to fight. But we don't fight an enemy. We fight adharma. We fight against adharma. We don't have enemies or friends. You see the difference? This Krishna is explaining very clearly. The Sthita Pragya doesn't make discrimination between friends and enemy. This is being tolerant. But that doesn't mean that you don't fight against adharma. You understand?
But what we find in society, like when we try to speak up, people won't understand. Like those who are very much attached to their
Of course,
own,
exactly. Yes.
tamas understanding.
Yeah.
So why to speak? Like these days, if I give you an example, too much of Hindu right wing per se, they are just treating all other like Muslims and all in same light. Indeed, we Muslims also at different level. You can't generalize and put the same tag. Okay, all Muslims are jihadis and like that. There are liberal Muslims, there are moderate Muslims. Everybody has their own way to deal with, but tag them as general.
Okay, this is another discussion, because the point is we say that there are moderate Muslims, but Muslim authorities don't accept this idea.
Yeah, they won't accept, but
So
there
just
are
leave,
okay.
just leave the Muslims out for now.
Okay, okay.
You know, anyone, you know, of course, when we talk, when we do our duty, we will find a lot of opposition. Now, being tolerant means that you tolerate the difficulties. Like Krishna is saying, matras parsastu kontaya, sitoshna sukha dukkada, agama paina anityastam titikshasva, Bharata. Titiksha means tolerance. We have to tolerate the difficulties and keep going. Of course, some people who don't want to listen, we don't need to, you know, push them too much. Because we go to someone else who wants to listen. Because there are 7 billion people on this planet, you know. We'll find someone who wants to listen. Those who don't want to listen, just drop them, you know, walk away.
But still, we have to speak up once at least.
Exactly. We still have to speak up, you know, in a proper way, in the proper context, to the proper people. Like, for example, on Quora, now I'm about 3 million views. But you know, I blocked more people than the number of followers I have. Because who cares? You know, if they're stupid, if they're not interested in listening, if they're offensive, if they, you know, they just want to remain attached to their own, you know, identifications and attachments, okay? You know, I'm tolerant. I'll let you write whatever you want on your page. But that doesn't mean I have to waste time with you. You understand?
Yeah.
So you know, tolerance means we still speak up, but we don't go to, you know, we don't have enemies. We don't see anyone as enemy. Of course, they will see us as enemies, but you know, that's not the first time. Like Yudhishthira was called Ajatashatru. You know what is the meaning of Ajatashatru?
Yes.
It means someone whose enemy was never born. And still Yudhishthira is there sitting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Lots of people want to kill him. How you call them? Enemies, right? But he didn't see anybody as enemy. Of course you have to fight. But you don't see, you know, it's like a surgeon. When a surgeon is opening up a patient in you know, to remove a tumor, he doesn't see the patient as an enemy, but he's stabbing the patient. You know, a patient is bleeding. You know, but not because the surgeon thinks that the patient is his enemy. You understand? So we can still do our surgeries, you know, but we have to we remain tolerant and compassionate, because we know that the reason why these people are so aggressive and offensive and, you know, stupid is because they're stupid, you know, because they're in tamas and rajas, and they don't, you know, ahankara vibudhatma karta ham iti manyate. You know, they're vimudha, they're stupid. You know, they're confused. They think they are doing things. But in reality, it is the gunas that are working. So this is a tolerance, okay? You know, shitoshna, like the cold and the heat. You know, it's nobody's fault. You understand? We tolerate, but that doesn't mean that because it's cold or hot, we don't do anything. You know, we still have to do our duties.
And when this comes to our, like, closed ones, when, like, an argument can hamper the
Family,
relationship.
friends, and
Yeah.
co-workers and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So how to handle this? Because if we keep, like, telling them the dharma and all, and they are not ready to listen, if you have to
Then
work
don't
with
tell
them.
them.
Okay.
You know, they go and to someone who's listening. Because, you know, the problem is that your near and dear are just, you know, material identification and material attachment and sense, ahankara and mamatva. You know, you have duties to your family and friends, but, you know, in a measure, you know, which they are doing something good to you and you have to reciprocate. That's called a rina, right? A debt. You know, you have a debt towards your parents, towards, you know, your ancestors, towards people who love you and they're, you know, trying to do good things for you. Then you have, your duty is to pay them back. But that doesn't mean that they are really yours, because that's a hankara mamatva. You know, this is why, you know, Krishna in the beginning of Gita say we are all born and die. You know, how many mothers and fathers have you had? You know, this is what you know, Yama was preaching. You know, this is what the son of what was his name? The king. Anyway, so the point is that it is good to love people, but it's not good to be attached to people. Identification and attachment to material bodies, material relationships, material, it's dangerous.
But it's still, like, we have to deal with them. So as, like,
Of
should we
course you
speak
have
up
to
or
deal
should
with
we
them.
should we keep quiet? Because we have seen trying multiple times and we have seen the results. So better not to let them do their adharma. Is it fine?
Exactly. If you become intelligent, clever, and knowledgeable and expert enough, you can actually help them in different ways until they become willing to listen. Now, the problem is that the first step is that you need to bring them to the point where they respect you. Because if they don't respect you, they never listen. Anyway, this is your personal thing. We can talk about that in private. We you know, but in general, the material attachment is not helping much. Okay, question number 2. The quote is, simply accepting on faith that Krishna is God is not sufficient. One has to understand Krishna Tattva. But, okay, question is, but the Lord says in the end, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. Again, how to integrate these two seemingly opposite ideas? If one accepts the Lord as his life and soul and tries to improve himself under the care of the Guru, won't he ultimately achieve liberation without knowing Krishna Tattvata? As I think, knowing Krishna Tattvata is the end goal, liberation, and not prerequisite to move on the path of self-realization. Is that question clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is the purpose of a guru if he's not teaching Krishna Tattva?
Yeah.
So, what is that famous quote from Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya? Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra kene hoy.
Jai
Hey,
Krishna
Krishna
Tattvavata.
tattvavetta se guru hoy. The purpose of the guru is to teach you about Atman, Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan. Otherwise, what is the guru? Yeah, okay, we have lots of different levels of gurus.
Yes.
You know, guru is even your primary school teacher, you know, who teaches you how to read and write.
Yes.
Okay. But we are talking about Sadguru here. We're not talking about, you know, you know, gymnastic gurus. Okay. Okay, you know, you can learn anything from anyone. There is when Chanakya Pandit is famous for having said that a wise person can accept good teachings even from a child or a fool.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know, can accept nectar from a pot of poison and gold even from the garbage. So, you know, if you are under the care of the guru, what is the guru doing? You know, this is a problem. This is another big misconception that people don't understand what is the job of description of a guru. They think that the guru has no duty. You know, a guru just sits there and only the disciple has duties. Not many duties, but you know, just you have a guru. You know, go around with a badge. You know, I am a disciple of blah blah blah. What did he teach you? What did you learn? How did you develop? It's if you cannot answer these questions, you don't have a guru. You have someone who is pretending to be a guru. That's another thing. So, you know, knowing Krishna Tattva is the not only the end goal of the self-realization, but it's also the beginning and the middle. Like
It's a
Krishna is
continuous
saying,
process, you mean?
yeah, it's an entire process.
Uh-huh.
You know, like Krishna is saying, I'm the beginning, the middle, and the end. You know, it's not just you know, if you know the Atman, you know Brahman. If you know Brahman, you know the Atman. You know, they're both going on at the same time. So to understand yourself with a, you know, big S, capital S, you have to study the Shastras that explain Brahman to you. And the other way around. To understand Brahman, you need to understand that you're not the body. Because otherwise you cannot understand Brahman. It has to go side by side.
And also it is like both sadhya and sadhana.
Yeah. You know, we have in the Bhakti Marga, we have the first stage is called the Sadhana Bhakti. The second stage is called Raganuga Bhakti. Okay. The Sadhana Bhakti means that you are practicing. But that doesn't mean that you cannot have realizations during the Sadhana Bhakti stage.
Yes.
You need to have realization. Now, the Raganuga is not a thing that you do different things. Is that you do them spontaneously.
Yes.
You don't have to make an effort because it's normal. It's like we were saying before about the 8 stages of yoga. Yama niyama become spontaneous.
Spontaneous when we are at the stage of samadhi.
Exactly, because you know it's You don't like, for example, let's say, okay, one of the yama niyama, it's ahimsa. It means that you have to be a vegetarian. For someone who's not vegetarian, it takes some effort in the beginning. But if you've always been vegetarian, what's the big deal? It's spontaneous. You know, when you have achieved the level of spontaneous, attraction only to pure vegetarian food, if someone is giving you a fish, you just what's that? Throw it away. You don't have to make an effort not to eat non-veg. It's normal, it's natural. So in the same way, we need to make some effort to achieve a certain level of realization. Then when we actually get this enlightenment, this realization, this prakash, everything becomes clear and normal. And you think, how could I not see that? Sometimes you have seen, maybe in the last few decades, with the new age trend, it came out these pictures that have a double meaning. Like, for example, you see like a horse and a duck in the same picture, or the old woman and the young woman in the same picture. It depends on the perspective. You cannot see, you only see one until you see both. And then you cannot unsee it. You understand? It's not that you cannot find it anymore. Of course you'll find it, because, how could I not see it before? So clear. You understand?
Yeah.
So it goes side by side. And by steps of realization. The more you actually achieve the realization, the more you can progress. Okay. Is it clear?
So,
does it answer your question?
Yes. In the same that commentary, I also find you also mentioned that just by listening to Krishna's stories is not sufficient, right? In that same
Well, the
text.
story, if you think that Krishna is a material person, well, the story is okay, but it's not sufficient. Then you get stuck on people who ask you how many children, did Vishnu and Lakshmi have, and who is stronger, if Vishnu or Voldemort, or if Rama had went to fight against Krishna, who will win? These kind of questions are like, they're depressing. Because
but like continuously listening to stories from Bhagavatam, wouldn't that cultivate our consciousness? And
yes, if you read the Bhagavatam, because if you read the Bhagavatam, it's not just the story. If you read, in fact, there is plenty of philosophical explanations about the transcendental nature of Krishna, especially in the 10th canto, when it starts about the actual story of Krishna. 10th canto, 11th canto, where it is describing the Krishna Lila. There is so much philosophy.
Okay, so their story you meant was some imaginary story, not the Bhagavatam and all. Like when you said that story,
the tattva is okay. Let's make an example. You see one man who goes around with a gun and stops people, stops the car, tell the people to get down from the car and everything. If you don't know the tattva, who is that person? Could be a criminal, could be a policeman. How do you know?
Yeah.
So your understanding of the activities of that man will be drastically different.
Got it.
Okay. Any further question?
Yeah, not related to this fourth chapter which I was reading, but from this, like when we in the beginning of the class we were discussing about the reality and Brahman, Paramatma, and all this. Tatvatah they are same.
Yeah.
Tattva is same. Rasa might
Vedanti
differ.
tattva vidas.
So can that be said about those Shaivas or Shaktas? Those maybe they get different rasa, but ultimately they are also either of this Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Now, of course, it depends also on their particular level of understanding and realization. The point is not the Ishtadeva. The point is the Bhakta. If what level of understanding and realization has the Bhakta? Not the Ishtadeva is not the problem. The problem is the devotee. What kind of realization and understanding has a devotee? So if someone is a serious, sincere, and knowledgeable person and realized person, there will be no difference.
Okay. And rasas would differ. Those, let's say Shaiva, they say they go to Kailash, or Vaishnava go to Vaikuntha or Golok. So rasas would differ and tattva would be same. Can that be said? Or how they...
Listen. Again, here we have to improve our perception, because Vaikuntha, Kailash are not material places. There is a reason why they're called the spiritual world. Vaikuntha is not a geographical place. It's not. We have to overcome our material vision. We have to bring down the walls. Break down the walls of material vision, because Vaikuntha is not a material place. Even on the subtle level, which is still material, we can experience subtle reality in different forms according to our level of consciousness. What to speak of perceiving the spiritual existence? So, it doesn't matter. You are already in Vaikuntha. The material world, according to the Bhakti Shastra, material world is just 1/3 of the spiritual world that is covered by the cloud of the Mahatattva. So we don't go anywhere. We are already there. Only the Mahatattva is dissipated through yoga and bhakti. So we can see clearly where we are, what we are, who we are. We don't have to move from one place to another place.
It is basically like purifying the consciousness.
Exactly.
But still, when they say, okay, that Vrindavan, Ras and all, that, okay, Krishna's...
But that's a Ras. That's not the place. Ras means a feeling, sentiment.
So sentiment, that's what I'm asking, that sentiment would differ for one who says, okay, he reached Kailash, or one who says he reached Golok.
It depends on the Ras.
Okay. So they would be different rasa, but tattvata, they are, maybe we can call them liberated.
Yes, it's the same. It's one.
Okay. Then why, when some sects, they go sectarian, and not sectarian per se, but they would accept people from other faiths also, and they would ask them to continue, but still they would say, you focus on one deity. Shaivites would say
Okay,
Shiva,
this
Vaishnavas
is
would
a
say Vishnu.
different point. This is a different point. Focusing on one deity at the time is better because our mind is not so powerful. But if you read the Bhagavad Gita, you see that Krishna is showing the universal form to Arjuna. Now, the point is this, Krishna is showing this is my form. Then Arjuna is saying, I'm confused. I'm scared and confused. Please show me your human-like form. A human-like form is, seems to be more limited, but it's not limited because it's not like our material body. It's not a material body. It's a pure energy. It contains all the forms. Can show any form. It is all the forms at the same time. This is the bindu, it's smaller than the atom. It's beyond time, beyond space and time. It cannot be explained. It's achintya. It cannot be conceived intellectually. You only have to experience it. You can. Human being is perfectly capable of this experience. We have to go step by step. Okay, I think it's better we close here.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we get tired and it's difficult to absorb.
Yeah.
Okay.
This much is enough.
I think for today.
Yeah.
Of course, okay, let me